Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Having an affliction, having a disease is bad enough, but normally there is a path forward. At least you know where to go. Being a caretaker for those people, sometimes the map isn't so clear. And that's where Jane Boyle and Leone Murphy come in. They are co-founders of New Jersey Down Syndrome and Alzheimer's Family Support. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
How did you come up with this idea for a support group?
Well, my sister Ellen was born with Down syndrome in 1965, and Ellen passed away just a year ago at age 52. At about age 50, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, which was something we didn't expect. She and I lived together, and she lived a wonderful life. She always lived at home and had a very active, robust life in the community. And things happened. She started to exhibit some behaviors that we had never seen before. And that began a quest to get answers to what was happening. And it led to the understanding that she was part of the first generation of those born with Down syndrome who lived this long. When she was born, the life expectancy for a person with Downs was about 21 years of age. Today, the life expectancy for a person born with Downs is over 60 years of age. Wow. So there's not another, from my understanding, there's not another cohort on the planet who have experienced in that period of time, or short period of time, such a dramatic increase in life expectancy.
And Leone, the connection with Down syndrome and Alzheimer's, this is something you've studied most of your adult life.
Yes.
And I don't think most people know the connection.
No, well, the connection is Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common type of dementia. There's actually 100 different types of dementia, but Alzheimer's is the most common, about 90% of the cases, is caused by an amyloid plaque that builds up on the brain, and it's created by the 21st chromosome, the pair. And we all have a pair, but people with Down syndrome have 3. So they're trisomy 21 is how they're diagnosed. And so they start much earlier with the signs of dementia and Alzheimer's disease, and many of the families don't recognize it as that. They think it's more of a behavioral problem. Many parents came to me and said, you know, she used to zip up her coat. Now she just stands there, and they think they're being obstinate, the daughter, and I'll say, no, she's forgotten. She's forgotten how to do it, or they'll put their clothes on over their pajamas, forgetting to, take off the pajamas first. And the families really think it's behavioral, but it's not.
Now, we've dealt with Down syndrome and Alzheimer's, but if a parent gets a diagnosis that their child has Down syndrome, there are treatments for somebody with Down syndrome. There's a path forward. You're told you're supposed to do this. If somebody gets Alzheimer's, you're told that this is the treatment for that. Being a caregiver, there's not this is what you're supposed to do. There aren't as many support groups, and dealing with the obvious afflictions of being a caregiver, because you're giving up so much time, and there's an emotional toil. Your group specifically is, we have the connections now you've talked about, that can be treated, but aren't you there for the caregivers?
We're there for the families. We're there for whether it's siblings or the parents, and now you think of the person with Down syndrome, they've aged now to age 50. Many of the parents, are in their 80s and 90s now trying to take care of this person. So often, like in Jane's case, the siblings, take over in providing support to them. And to answer a lot of questions, like what was the final trigger for us? Because we had talked about starting it for about a year. There was a story in the newspaper about a gentleman who was 52 in Ocean County, and his sister had been caring for him. And she panicked at home. She didn't know who to call when he started having trouble breathing. So she rushed him to the emergency room, and they put him on a ventilator, a respirator, so that he could continue breathing. And then she didn't know what to do at that point. So there was this heartwarming, heartbreaking story in the Asbury Park Press, and I said, we need to do something, because there are people she could have reached out to get advice, to think. So when you get the diagnosis of the Alzheimer's, there's a lot of things you need to think about.
So Jane, what do you do for these people? When they contact you, how do you help?
Well, we share experience, and what we learned too is that even in the medical community, there are very few in the medical community who know how to recognize or how to treat or help a person with Down syndrome and Alzheimer's. So there are resources that have now been developed that literally have been developed only in the last year or two, for the first time ever.
But the caregiver themselves needs help.
They need help.
Can I tell you this though? But the biggest help they need is to know how to navigate through the disease.
That. Oh, I understand it. That is, of course, first and foremost.
And that has been really the gap that has not been filled. You know, if you or I or Leon gets Alzheimer's disease, it's now pretty well understood what the course of the disease is, and what the potential treatments for it are, and what the decision points along the way will be. Not so with people with Down syndrome now. The course of the disease is, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia are Alzheimer's and dementia. But with our loved ones with Down syndrome, there are additional challenges to try to recognize that disease for what it is. One of the things that, you know, we're not, Leon is, but I'm not a clinical person, and we're not trying to be a clinical provider, but we're trying to help not only support the caregivers in this very confusing situation they find themselves in, but to help them to learn how to safely, as well as possible, bring their person and themselves through this.
And give them some answers as to what's going on. And so how do people contact you?
Usually through the ARC of New Jersey, the state ARC, and we are going to be on their website. And
so this is really still, you're still getting ready. Oh,
we
okay.
just started in January.
All right.
And now we have email addresses. jboyle417@gmail.com.
leonmer2@yahoo.com.
Wonderful, and we'll have that underneath you. So thank you so much. I'm sorry we ran out of time. Going to talk to you more. Jane Boyle and Leon Murphy are co-founders of New Jersey Down Syndrome and Alzheimer's Family Support. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Coming up next, New Jersey has a landmark law to help young sexual assault survivors. We'll introduce you to a charity that has been fighting that fight for a long time. That's when Jersey Matters continues.